Like I said before, once you come up, state your name, your address, and we'll check you off the list and make your comments. Let's try to keep all of our comments short, sweet, nice. Thank you, guys. Yes, ma'am.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, I can.
My name is Beth Emery.
That one's not working. I don't.
My name is Beth Emery, and I live at 2111 Davis Road in Sadieville. I'm here to urge you to follow the recommendations of the staff report and not allow waste services to rezone. A1 to I2 is a pretty hefty jump for 179 acres, like they pointed out. Hey, the people, we need as much space as possible between us and Mount Hazmat. This is about planning and zoning. And what they've got planned for this zone should make you sick. I'm going to skip all of their violations of the past that have made us sick because that's been covered. But I will point out that less than a year ago, they were cited for not installing explosive gas detectors. You talk about sick. And I read the letter that they submitted with their rezone request. They sweetened the deal with that list of promises that they promised to stick to if you let them rezone. They won't use the new zone for anything but borrow and buffer, and they won't use the railroad. But I will point out that their promises for the future don't mean much when their past is a matter of public record. And the public record reveals a complete disregard for the law, a contempt for our health, and a hazard to the environment that they now want to exploit on a larger scale. And they're asking you if it's okay if they do it. We've been waiting so long, a long time, for a government agency to do the right thing about the landfill. And while we've waited, we have choked on its dust and its sewer sludge. They've hit a school bus, they've exposed us to toxins, and a woman died. A woman died on a road that obviously cannot support industrial tube. The truth lives in the actions of their past, not the promises for the future. So please consider their offer with your eyes wide open, follow the staff report recommendations, and be the agency that does the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
I got overexcited, y'all. No, I can't hold it out. I'm talking about it.
Could have been there. Yeah.
I would just kind of hold that thing.
My name is Michelle McCall. I live on 154 Double Culvert, the corner of 25 and Double Culvert Road. So I do see every truck, hear every truck, smell every truck that passes by my house every day. Chip and I have had many conversations. Out of the 114 trucks or whatever it is, there's 2 that I know by name and by number that are compliant, that actually do the speed limit, that are respectful of the property. The others, I can't give them any credit at all. They don't respect any of us on that road. I smell the landfill in my basement at times, in my home, on my clothes. We live with the dirt. I have a farm, so I can't really say much about that. But, I mean, we live the landfill every day. And I don't think it's good for our community. I can say if you guys do go ahead and approve the expansion or the zoning, I know I'm personally putting the farm for sale, and I know a number of other people that have said they all will also leave. So that's not good for our community. You're going to lose a lot of citizens. You're going to see a lot of for sale signs go up. Thank you.
Thank you.
One other thing is, my husband works at Toyota, and I used to work at Toyota. One thing I can say is they build over 500,000 cars a year. So the 10,000 that are being built off of the power generated by the landfill, small amount in my name.
Yeah.
My name is Linda Stacy. I'm a mother and a grandmother. And this is what I'm concerned about. God's not making any more land, and we're allowing them to destroy it. I went down the road last summer, and the dust was so thick, I thought the woods was on fire. I mean, you couldn't even see through it. That happens all the time. Now, this fall, I looked out and I could still see the tops of the trees. Now I go up to the end of Luke Road, which I'm sorry, I didn't tell you I lived on Luke Road. And now I see garbage trucks stuck in the air, dumping garbage, and garbage running down the hill. I do say I have seen several dump loads of dirt. That's the first dirt I've seen on that place. There's a little woman that lives right across from that. And her husband sat on his porch every summer. When I called her, he had died. And she says, I know that dust killed him. She now has respiratory problems. This is the dust. Is this what we want for our county? Is this what we want for our children? I mean, that's what I'm asking you. Make the right decision, please. Don't let them expand. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sharon Last Vance. I live at 1258 Rogers Gap Road. At the home my husband built with his own hands. This expansion of the landfill will be in my backyard, basically. If I walk out on my porch, I'll see that 200-foot tall mountain of trash. I don't know if you'll see it from where you live, but I will. I'll not only see it, but I'll smell it. I'll live with the dust and all the things that's been mentioned here tonight. I'm a lifelong resident of Scott County. My great-grandparents, my grandparents, my parents, and myself, they chose, and I choose, to live in the country, rural life. My mother's 85 years old. Land that she has is impacted by this landfill expansion. She has property on Salem Church Road, for instance. Little Eagle Creek runs right through there. All those family members, friends, neighbors that I've known for years, they had a comprehensive plan too. And it didn't include a huge landfill in their neighborhood. They chose to move to the country. Some of you choose to live in the city. That's wonderful. That's what you choose. Please keep our rural land, our country way of life, a true country way of life. Thank you.
My name is Mark Smith. I live at 104 Teal Court. I'm going to keep my comments short. I would ask that you affirm the recommendations of staff. I think that the attorney for Waste Services did a great job. I think he painted a good picture for Waste Services. But one thing that was left out of that picture was when he was describing the host agreements with the county. One thing that was not described, it was not uneducated, was an understanding between the county, the governments and the people, that you be a good corporate citizen in your participation in your business, in doing business in Scott County. I think when we look at their record of compliance, 44 citations, individual citations in a 35-month period, when we did go to the county, when we did go to the city, and we said, we've got a traffic issue on US 25. These trucks are going to kill someone. I represent the community that the lady lived in and was killed. And if you wanted to know how many trucks were on the road, she was clipped with a truck going north, a garbage truck going north, and then killed by a garbage truck heading south. That's how many trucks were on the road. And when we came to different folks, and I know that they came to Waste Services, nothing was done until that time. The city did act and said, hey, we're going to send all our trucks up I-75, and that's for the city's benefit. And we appreciate that and thank them. Shortly thereafter, as mentioned earlier, a school bus was sideswiped. The children on that bus live in the community that I represent. It should be no less of an act of good faith on your all's part as it has been on the citizens' part, to stand up and speak up through all this over this last year at every meeting for you to affirm the recommendations of your staff. Thank you.
My name is William Hutchison. I live at 142 Westwoods Drive, and I'm asking a question that I asked before. On January 11th, 2017, a meeting was held at Scott County High School where 200 residents opposed the Central Kentucky landfill expansion. And those of us who were allowed to speak had our questions written down by Scott County's stenographer, who recorded our questions. Each speaker was told that he or she would be given an answer, but no answer was ever given back for the question which I submitted as follows. When obtaining a permit to dump non-hazardous special waste into a landfill, any landfill, it is proper protocol to meet certain test criteria to ensure that no SVHC, substances of very high concern, such as toxins, heavy metals, and biohazards, or even radioactive material, which is a special category, gets illegally dumped there. The question is, what test criteria is required by the owners of Central Kentucky landfill before allowing any party to dump special waste? I've looked at the permits, and I've done this. I've personally been involved for 40 years in obtaining proper documentation for sending industrial special waste to landfills in 4 different states. And frankly speaking, Central Kentucky landfill does not appear to display the ability to handle special waste in a way that ensures safety for the citizens of Scott County. Optional question, I might as well put it there. I think it's been covered, but I need to put it there. On the website for Central Kentucky landfill, there's a disclaimer as follows. We have also instructed the trucks hauling waste from our outside transfer stations to use exit 136. How are these instructions communicated to the drivers of the trucks? I mean, if the statement's true, no one's listening, because it's no different. And my wife's asked me every day, she says, who has to get killed? And I said, not who, how many? How many people have to get killed or hurt by that before something's done? So please, please, do the right thing. Thank you.
My name is Tony Pantoliano, and my wife and I live between exit 136 and Double Culvert Road on US 25, just a little south of Mudd's Butcher Shop there. You probably know where that is. Okay, well, if you're familiar with that area of road, my wife and I have become very concerned about our safety as far as trying to get out on US 25. I have noticed the trucks there as early as 6 o'clock in the morning, and when they get off at 36, they're really roaring around the corner, and they're coming down that hill right in front of my driveway getting out. We've come close a few times. Also, it's becoming very apparent that that road, especially in that area, is deteriorating rapidly. I don't know when the last time you guys have been up there or maybe driven that area of the road, but the sides are just literally going away. Then again, with the trash is up and down 25 everywhere. Also, we would request that maybe, also this morning I went to work and, well, I had to hold my nose and go to the car. I mean, when you walk out your door, it just hits you in the face, and you just got to get to your car as fast as you can. And, so this is not a good thing. Also, I see in the media where they keep saying that Scott County is the fastest growing county in Kentucky. Well, if this is going to go on, that will probably change, I would think, because once the word gets out that this, if this gets approved, then I would say people are going to go, maybe I won't go to Scott County. So I think we have to look at that aspect also. So we would ask that you not do this, at least for our safety and the other people that live up there close to me. They're all in the same boat. So Thank you for your time. My name is Matt Fitzpatrick. I live in Sadieville on 214 Vine Street. Got a small farm out in Davis by Davis Turkey Foot where it runs into 32. I smell the trash in Sadieville a couple times a week, sometimes at the farm, every day when I travel around the county, going to Cynthiana, coming up 25 or going on the highway. It's just a matter of time. The clock is ticking before we have a catastrophic event in Scott County regarding this landfill. That's all I got to say.
All right, Jared Zaletta, off Lakeside Drive.
Say your last name again, please.
Zaletta, Z. Their lawyer said it perfectly. The Commonwealth will come out here and tell you when we've had enough. And here we are, we're saying it now. Also, as a veteran, I can say that I've served multiple tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. I've already walked streets and lived in dumps and smelt it. I don't want to do that now. I don't want to do that here. I don't want my child to grow up in that kind of condition. You said it yourself, you don't want to be here. We've all heard you just say that. I don't either. I've got a 1-week-old daughter. I'd rather be at home right now than sitting here for 4 hours debating why we don't need another large landfill. He says it's not going to be another landfill. Oh, we're not increasing, we're not making any more dumps. They just want sand to build some retention ponds. So they just want a sandbox. They just want a sandbox that wants the 114 trucks coming in and out. He also says, they're pledged that they're only going to use exit 136. Well, it's already been said that exit 136 in Stadieville is going to get reevaluated and remodified and built and looks a lot better. Well, during that time, where are these trucks going? Back to 129? Well, if an accident happens between my place at Harbor Village and the Scott County Fire Department with one of their trucks and a school bus or God forbid another bus or whatever else it is, how is EMS now going to get to my house or anyone else's? They have to come back out and go up to 136? Well, that takes it roughly 2.2 miles or 4 minutes as it is now to 15 miles or 18 minutes of my wife freaking out that our kid or someone else's kid needs EMS services and they can't get there because they want to drive 8.5 feet wide trucks, which need approximately 11 feet down there, or even bulldozers or anything larger, which are approximately 25 tons. And that's not me just Googling stuff. That's me talking to guys that I personally know that have worked at LG&E over in Louisville, who are heavy equipment operators. They even said that 8.9% of the municipal waste and 83% of the special waste is coming from other counties. Well, how about this? Why don't we stop making money off everyone else and just taking our own trash? Sorry, give me a second here. He cited a survey or a report from '91. It's a good place to dump. What? Because we're in the country? Let's not have it in our backyard, so let's dump it up there. In '97, if we take in other people's trash, we won't have to pay for it. Hey, let's save more money and take in other people's stuff. Which now puts us in the predicament we're in now, or where we have to, what? Well, I guess not add a new dump, we're just going to have another sandbox for them. Or 98, he said where it's about 9 counties. And he flipped through the other slides rapidly, and when I looked like he had 30 counties highlighted, but wouldn't go back to that slide, so anyone could actually see who all is dumping their stuff here. He also cites that, hey, there's going to be multiple people that will oversee this process. Like, what, the Army Corps of Engineers? Some of the same people that oversaw the new roads and berms down in Louisiana that had no proper drainage that helped lead to the flooding in Katrina. So how about we just stop taking in people's trash, live with what we have, and leave it at that.
Hello, my name is Carolyn Hamilton. I live on 185 Elbrook Road. That's between the fire station and Sadeville. And I can't add too much to what everybody else has already said, except that I have friends and church family members who live on Double Culvert, and it is hideous. If you all haven't been out there, you need to go visit it. It's really bad. You can see them out in the trash already. I took pictures of it today. It's awful. And from where I live, almost every day I walk out my door and I smell the smell. It doesn't go away. And it's gotten worse over time. And I can just imagine how it's going to be this summer. I will not be able to go out and enjoy the outdoors any at all. And then I know it's got to be an environmental hazard issue. And please, please, listen to us. We have a voice and we want you to hear us. Thank you.
Just hold it.
Just hold it.
Try to hold
Most of what I had prepared to say tonight has already been said. So
Ma'am, could you give your name?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Penny Summers. I live at 1495 Barkley Road, Sadeville, within spelling distance of the landfill. There's some questions that have already been raised, but I'd like to kind of ask some of them in a different way. This whole conceptual plan of self-imposed restrictions. The problem with self-imposed restrictions is the same problem I have with New Year's resolutions, that they become unresolved after a while at my will, and self-imposed restrictions likewise can become unimposed restrictions. And I wonder who is going to enforce, because really the enforcement on the violations for this landfill has been like pulling teeth. To even get the state to acknowledge, you walk in, oh, well, we can't think about that. Or they come and they say, we'll monitor the air quality when there's no problem, and then, or when we can, when it's convenient for us. So I would like to see something that would let us know, that would be transparent so the public could see what the monitoring says. And this is just with the current landfill. I just wonder who is looking at the embers and clothes. Is it somebody who says, oh, they're beautiful, or they're naked? Anyhow, so that's the problem that I have with self-imposed restrictions, and it's fine and dandy, but again, it makes you wonder what they do with special waste. And special waste are defined under statute by those of low hazard, include but are not limited to mining waste, utility waste, including fly ash, bottom ash, scrub sludge, all of those kinds of things, which I'm sure you all are familiar with. And I got to thinking about that, and in my research I came across an article in the New York Times that talked about fly ash. And does everybody know what they are? It's residual from burning coal. And according to this article, that more than 100 million tons of this ash is produced every year. And it's one of the nation's largest and most vexing streams of toxic waste. The hazardous dust and sludge contain arsenic, mercury, and other heavy metals. Now, these are special wastes that this landfill is permitted by the state, under state regulations, to accept. We've seen some of the leachate, and I have actually had a California condor walk into my living room when the front door was open because of some of the displacement. They're an endangered species, and I try to, these guys have a wingspan of 10 feet. And of course, this is a baby. And I had to call the raptor rescue people in Louisville, because you're not allowed to try to help them if they're injured, and they're dangerous, but they're really fast too. And that kind of displacement, it's a habitat for humans, it's a habitat for plants, and while it may be only scrubland to the applicants that is forested and grown over, it's my home. And I'm there because of that seclusion and the pastoral presence that is there. So they said also that the subject to rezoning will be limited to extraction, storing, and processing minerals to be used for borrow and drainage and ponds. So being a special waste permitted landfill, they're going to have ponds that have drainage Or is this just, will no drainage from the landfill actually get into the 175 acre ponds? Or is that simply from moving all the land around? I think that's something important to consider. And again, as Mr. Porter pointed out, that in gaining the Lexington contract, which is our biggest contributor to the landfill, that the applicant, Waste Services of the Bluegrass, talked about railing and trash. And they, I'm quoting now from what they said, that our president and CEO, they brag, has to date developed the only rail waste landfill in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Gee, would that be big run, do you think? I believe it might be. So moving waste by rail, they say, uses much less fuel than trucks while accommodating the same objective. Now that's in direct conflict with their self-imposed regulations or restrictions, where they say we won't rail anything in. And I can almost guarantee that that statement, coupled with the fact that they plan on converting their fleet of trucks to compressed natural gas, which is also fuel efficient and green, gained them the successful bid. Gained them the bid because, according to the request for proposals, Lexington Fayette County weighted 35 points to cost and disposal. So here we have the arguments that they made for, using CNG. I have no idea if they converted their trucks yet, but they made this contract, and even though the proposal that they made is tertiary in terms of enforcement or in terms of resolving conflict, nevertheless, it's still one of the 3 ways to resolve those issues. So it is a commitment, but I'm starting to think that maybe they just have a pocket full of empty promises that gets them what they want, in the same way that a child will try to bargain and negotiate, oh, I'll clean my room if you do this. Well, okay. The only other point that I have is that the applicant states that the landfill will provide 70,000 tons of waste space a year for Scott County. However, they will provide 300,000 tons of waste space per year for outside contractors. Why would we ever want to violate our own self-determined comprehensive plan when we get, according to these figures, not even 19% of the space for the landfill, but we get 100% of the headaches. And I might just real quickly add that Newtown Pike is also a very dangerous road to travel on. Lexington, often trucks will come straight from Lexington using 922. I've been run off the road 5 times in the last year. So I urge you to accept the recommendations of the staff and deny the application. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Michael Whitcomb. I live at 978 Double Culver Road. If you looked at the maps, I would have been one of the names that was shown on the maps. This morning when I woke up, you go outside and you taste it, okay? It's not the same as it used to be. It's created a hostile environment, not just to live, but also for the community. A different attitude for the people that live northern in Kentucky you know, if you're run off by a truck or a truck, something aggravates you, it changes you. It might affect you how you work. It smells bad. No one from the landfill has ever come and knocked on our door and said, hey, how things are going. We want to help you out. Has there been any trash? I can see the lights from the trucks from my property when they start dumping and working up there. The road, you can't go down and keep a car clean. Anyone, and I sometimes wonder, do you all even drive out there just to see the road, you know, randomly? You know, the runoff, they push the dirt off to the side, and they push it off to the side, and they push it off the side. It rains, they bring out water, it rains, they try to keep it clean, they cannot, they can't keep up. It's causing us problems. The lawyer that represents the landfill, it kind of aggravated me to hear him say, when he mentioned Toyota, trying to create the illusion of fear. If you don't do this, you know, Toyota's going to be mad. You know, that's how the landfill works towards us. They wanted to create fear. Well, we have to have this or else. They're not here to help us. No one has ever come to my door. They know it's a problem. We've called the state. Things had to be, the situation has to be just right. The wind has to be blowing, that it blows down our area. And when the expansion, you got to understand, they're going to cut down trees. That's going to create more flow, more visual. Well, I can see the landfill. It's going to create more problems. Don't expand. They mentioned about past. Well, they did this in the past. They did this in the past. And guess what? Don't let it be like, well, they did this, because they hand the torch to someone else. They'll come back again. They'll try to keep on expanding in this. They've done used up all their resources. They've made that buck for their pocket. They chose to go ahead and get paid today, not worried about the future or trying to plan for the future. What about Scott County and the people? Do we not vote people in to help us? So far, everyone's been pointing the finger at someone else. This group, that group, they just shipped them along in this thing. They're not here to help us. Is it about the love for money? What's going on? Why are we here tonight? Why do I have to take time out of my schedule to come here and say, hey, this should be a no-brainer? That's all I got to say. Just help us. We're begging for help. We need help. This affects me every day. No longer, we built our house. It's out in the country. Open up the windows. I got chickens. Wonderful. Can no longer open your windows. It smells. They said, well, it smells worse than the summertime. Wet trash smells worse than dry trash. No leaves on the trees. That wind just blows it on through. My house is not the same anymore. Our plans to build a barn, we put off. We put our life on standstill when it comes to certain things because of choices that people have made. We're being cheated out of our life. That's all I got to say.
Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Yvonne Stadnick. I live at 116 Summer Ridge Road, just past Mallard Point. I drive 25, 6 days a week, more if I have to go to Lexington on my 1 day off. I don't have the luxury of choosing an alternate route. The same can be said for a lot of these people here. You drive 25 or you stay home. There's nowhere else to go. I work in Winchester. I have to get to the interstate. I either go north or I go south, but I'm going 25. It's scary. I mean, scary when those trucks come. And I drive a little car. And I felt sometimes that I was actually going to get pushed off the road. And now they put the guardrails in. And yeah, I'm not going to go quite as far off the road, but I feel like I've not got anywhere else to go when those trucks come. Georgetown is growing, and we're growing rapidly. Toyota's just put in a whole new factory, and we're going to need people for that. And Georgetown is growing. It's exciting, but at the same time, with all of those people comes a need for that trash to go somewhere. Trash has to go somewhere. I don't know if any of you remember, because this was a story a long time ago, but I was there this summer in New York when the trash barge got floated back and forth from New York to New Jersey. Trash has to go somewhere, right? My thing is, and maybe this isn't the right time to discuss it, and my heart goes out to all of these people who've had it much worse than I have, but I think it's time for Georgetown and Scott County to start looking into a serious, aggressive recycling program to help reduce the waste that goes to landfill. That is one of the biggest things that we as a community can do to help solve the issue of how fast the landfill gets filled. There is nothing in place that I'm aware of that provides regulation for local businesses and industries to recycle. I work for a small box retailer. There's nothing. Trash just goes out the back. That's it. Doesn't get recycled. I am passionate about this. I've worked for a recycling company in California, and I know a little bit about the industry. I am passionate about recycling, so much so that I bring my own recycling home to make sure it gets disposed of properly. Please, maybe this isn't the right evening, but just consider it. They need you. I need you.
Hello, my name is Lane Crawley, and I live at 6211 Cincinnati Road. I'm retired from the Sheriff's Office. I've worked hundreds of wrecks on 25 over the last 25, 30 years. Guys, the reason why I came up here is I just want to advise you. The roads between the interstate and Double Culver, even though it's legal to run those trucks on that road, they're not designed for it. It's dangerous. I'm worried. I've got teenage girls getting ready to start driving. When I come out of my driveway in the morning, it's busy. It's really busy. It's like, it's just really busy. You've got to catch an opening, get out of your driveway. So I would ask that consider declining the application, the road system, without major construction to 25 and Double Culver. It's dangerous. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
My name is Paul Maddox. I live at 960 Double Culver Road, right across from where they're going to do the expansion and everything. You can see it from my front porch. I'm against the zone change and expansion. Some of the complaints I have, a lot of other people, is the odor. 2 or 3 times a week, it's just really super strong for several hours at a time. There's times at night where it's, starts like at 7 or 8 o'clock at night and it lasts till morning. It's just a real strong, sulfur-like smell. Don't really get any enjoyment out on the property like it used to, like have campfires in the backyard or anything, because in the summertime, in the evenings, of course, the odor, the landfill is worse in the summertime than it is in the winter, but still, even today, when I drove over here, I could smell the landfill today. And also, they do things late at night there. You can sit on the porch late at night, like 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. They'll have machinery running up there. I can hear it all times of the night. They just do it periodically. I'm not exactly sure what they're doing up there. Another complaint, which really is really inconvenience for me, is the mud on the vehicles, and people complain about that. But I have to wash my vehicles every week just to keep them looking reasonable. They run the little Bobcat that has a big brush on it, and it just makes a big slime of mud out when it rains. If you want to go out there and really experience the mud, go on a day it's been raining all day or a couple days, and it's just a river of mud there on that road out there. Also, that 200-foot mountain of trash, once they get it completed, will be just basically directly across from our front door. And I think my property value will be near zero at that time. Of course, that might be 20 years from now, but I'm sure nobody would really want to buy that place looking at the pure green trash. So anyway, that's all I have to say.
Good evening. My name is Gaylord Van Gilder. I live at 101 Bufflehead Court in Mallard Point. And I just wanted to share with you that my wife and I moved up here from Lexington about 25 years ago, 22 years ago, because we really enjoyed the natural beauty in Scott County. And been friends with Mark Smith all that time, and he and his developers did an excellent job of developing that community and maintaining the natural beauty. And now when I walk out of my front door, it's like getting smashed in the face with this pungent, putrid odor. And I also share concerns about my property values. One question I do have for Mr. Royce is how much of our airspace in that facility has been used up by unlawful and illegal out-of-state waste. Thank you.
I retired about 5 years ago from the military, did about 21 years. Came out here because I did some research on the state. It's a pretty cool state. Got some nice amenities. Moved out to the Georgetown because I got kids, great school. Moved out to the country because I'm trying to simpler life, you know, get back to some normalcy from being in the military for so long. Did not expect to wake up in the mornings and have a smell just as bad as some of the burn pits that I smelled in Iraq. People have talked about the trucks. I don't know how many times I've counted skid marks in front of my property. Oh, by the way, I live at 4391 Cincinnati Road. I'm on the southeast side of 25 in Double Culver. So I get skid marks because they overshoot the, you know, they're going too fast. They don't pay attention to where they're at, so they have to slam on their brakes, and then you get accidents out there. We have called several times to the EPA about the smell. We actually emailed a Danny Anderson, and he told us not to contact them at the EPA to actually call the landfill. We called the landfill, and they said, no, we don't deal with that. So we finally got a hold of a lady, Diana, I don't know her last name. Yeah, and she took care of it for us, so good for her. I don't know how many vultures I've hit with my truck because they come down, you know, they're all over the place. I know there's a gentleman sitting in here, he's got like, I don't know, he said there's like 300 or 400 around his property all the time. I get run off directly from the landfill up there. It comes down and then goes into Eagle Creek across from my property. You should see the nastiness that's in there. It's pretty bad. And I've got animals, and I got to keep all my animals away from that stuff. One thing I wanted to bring up, and I know it's been brought up, but the process for the methane gas, you got evaporation, chemical reaction, and then microbial action going on. Okay, this makes a biogas, which is basically methane, carbon dioxide, and a couple other things. It takes about 6 months for that to become methane gas. It reaches methane gas reaches a peak at 20 years and then starts to decline over several decades. So when a gentleman back here said that, you know, it would hurt Toyota after 6 months of shutting down, is incorrect. I don't want to move again. I've already uprooted my family a lot over the years being in the military, and so I hope you guys go against this thing.
My name is J.R. Williamson. I live at Longview Golf Course, which no, we're close to. I'm the retired solid waste coordinator, so y'all can blame a lot of this on me.
I'm sorry, could you start over? I didn't understand you. You're retired?
Yeah, I'm the solid waste retired solid waste coordinator for Scott County. I was involved in a lot of this paperwork. And to clarify the odor, the reason the odor is what it is, back in the old days when you have small amounts of waste, you used to put 6 inches of faded cover on it. The working face they're working with down the landfill, that's not acceptable. I don't know what kind of cover they're using now. It's probably a tarp or whatever. But that's the reason you're getting your odor. Talking about the vectors, I don't know the flight pattern of Bluegrass Airport. You're getting a lot of vectors. That's what you get when you have a working base that's not contained. But this gentleman talked about history. I want to give us a history today about the mismanagement of waste and what it's cost not only the citizens of Scott County, but the state and the federal people. Do any of you remember Briar Hill? Some of you all are here, lived here all your life. We had to purchase a bunch of homes, relocate them. It's a Superfund site right now over here right in the middle of Georgetown. A lot of people didn't remember that they burned the waste there back then. I used to shoot rats over there on Sundays after church. Point I'm trying to make, then you had another Sims Road. Fayette County, it's not the first time Fayette County brought the waste down here. There's no, in the archives, there's a landfill called Fayette County Dump on Sims Road. So Fayette County's been doing this for a while. So that's one of another flaws in that everybody. Double covered, he's talking about the leachate. Not only the taxpayers of Scott County have to build and pay for the sewer line, and that's the first time that the city took the sewer lines outside of the city limits, was to contain and offset the cost of leachate from Sims Road and Double Covered. The reason they went to Sadeville was to help get the grant to help those people out. So the point I'm saying is here is not only the cost of the sewer lines, we're paying constantly for those leachates, the bad design. So we've mismanaged waste in this community for a number of years, way before this company ever showed up. So when I'm looking at you all, our past records as citizens, we shouldn't be allowed to have anybody manage waste in this community, because we've done such a poor job. It's still costing us daily. It's not only costing us, you get grants from federal grants, state grants, all the people around this state are paying for our mismanagement. So I'm just telling you all, you need to think long and hard to let anybody manage waste in this county. Division of Waste Management, you told me to come up here and tell you the best of my ability the truth. This is the truth. My 20-some years working the Division of Waste Management, that is our biggest environmental problem in this state, is that agency. That's my personal opinion. You told me to tell you the truth. I believe that the day I die. You people should know that there is a get-out-of-jail thing on this. Fayette County can get out of this contract July of 2019. So you attorneys, if you all want to keep them on paying them, tell them to go up there and lobby the city council in Fayette County next July in 2019. From what I understand from the contract reads that an anniversary date, 1 year in advance, you can get out of it either or. So you know that might be something you want to look at. Because that's where the problem's coming from, Fayette County. When I was a solid waste coordinator working on the plan, I tried to eliminate Fayette County because I knew the volume in which they generated. They're talking about all this yellow clay that they need to make this landfill. You want to know why? That's the reason Fayette County is not in the business. It's that clay. It's like gold. That's why they want it. They need it. They got to have it. That's why Fayette County is bringing their waste down here. You want a history lesson? You need to take one. We've mismanaged it bad. I don't know if this company right here, I can't prove it. I'm supposed to testify to the best of my ability. In the early 90s, when the Senate Bill 2 was passed, we're supposed to have some of the most stringent landfill regulations in the state. And we still have flaws because of the division. In Greenup County, they built a 19-acre cell in the wrong county. You know what happened to it? It got permitted. It met no regulations, no nothing. Research it, go back. 19 acres built in the wrong county without a permit and was then permitted. I'm telling you the truth, to the best of my ability. So I just want to give you a history lesson. Hope I haven't bored you. And thank you for your time.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, my name is Ken Minke. I'm the Regional Director for Government Affairs for Toyota North America, and I live here in Georgetown. for over 30 years. Toyota is not advocating pro or con for the landfill expansion. You know, that's a question for the landfill and for our local and state officials. All of Toyota's manufacturing plants are seeking alternative energy solutions in an effort to reduce our overall impact to the environment. This activity is related to Toyota Motor Corporation's 2050 challenge to reduce and eventually eliminate our CO2 emissions from our facilities and from our vehicles. Toyota's connection with the landfill is a partnership with the landfill to capture the methane that has historically been vented directly into the environment. It allows us to capture that and burn it to generate that 1 megawatt of electricity that you've heard about tonight that's used at the plant. That's about 2% of our energy usage. Very, very small. But because we are able to burn that methane, about 2,000 pounds of methane a year is now collected and destroyed. Basically allowing us the greenhouse gas emissions that have been cut by 95% at the landfill, which basically adds up to better air quality for the local community. So you know, there is more methane being generated. It does continue to generate over time. And so you know, we are looking at putting another megawatt in there to help reduce the methane even further for the community. There were a couple things that I've heard tonight that I would like to just clarify. First of all, you know, kind of the long range. If there's methane out there, if it's practical, if it's available, then we're going to consider that partnership to do that, to improve the environment and provide us with a little electricity. If it's not available, if it's not practical, then no, we're not going to do that. The second thing centers around this 20% revenue that Lexington receives from generation. I am not aware of any contract that we have as Toyota that provides Lexington with any revenue from that project. So I'm not sure where that's coming from. But I just want to thank you all for your time tonight.
I'm Angie Kilby, and I live at 106 Bayside Court in Harbor Village. I was behind the trash truck that hit the school bus. And Friday morning at 9:30, me and my granddaughter came out of Harbor Village, and you know, the great guardrail that's there, we met two trash trucks coming north, 2 foot across the center line. And I said, Jenna, we're gonna get hit. They got over to pass us, and when I looked in the rearview mirror, they were 2 feet over the line again, just trucking down the road. So it's a continuing problem. The guardrail's great, but I don't think it helps anything. And I sit in my living room with a clear view of Route 25 up by our lake, and I can watch the trash trucks all day long. I sometimes even sit there and counted them, and I think, what am I doing? You know, it's crazy. But that's just what I wanted to share with you.
Hello, my name is Millie Robleski. I live at 116 Greenwing Court in Mallard Point. I know what I deal with the effects of this landfill where I live. I can't imagine people who live closer to it, what they must deal with every day, because we see enough of it and we're not even that close. But a couple of things I just wanted to mention. What bothers me about them requesting this extra land and extra usage is initially, even the points they tried to make about us taking other people's garbage, it said Harrison County, Bourbon County. It was not the scope that they want to do right now, that they're trying to do right now. And I remember coming to a meeting recently, one of these in the past year, where they had some application for some 60-some counties. I remember Hamilton County in Ohio, out of state. That's why they're running out of space in their mind. What I would just like to suggest after listening to all this today is, all of the ill effects are there. It's affecting everyone in our county. I can't see making more exceptions for these people for a private, for-profit company at the expense of people like me who've lived here all of our lives. But I think what, in the bigger picture, would be nice is if in our comprehensive planning, we bring that in. We handle Scott County's waste, if any at all, we handle Scott County's waste, which is 11% of the space they're using now, not the other 89 for outside people, because they don't want to deal with it. We don't either. But if we can handle Scott County's waste in a comprehensive plan, that includes recycling, that is extremely lacking, as she said, in this county, I think we would be fine. I think we would be decades and decades with a manageable landfill, not one that somehow for 3 years, and I don't know if it's better to think they weren't aware, or they didn't care, or they purposely did it, but for at least 3 years took hazardous waste that wasn't even legal to be dumped there. You don't do that accidentally. And the gentleman was right, they're not here to help us, they're here for their money, to make their profit. Profitable companies are fine, but not at this expense. So again, I would just ask that we make that part of our comprehensive plan. Take Scott County's garbage, figure out a manageable, efficient, effective way to deal with our garbage, and put recycling in that too. That's all I would ask. Thank
My name is Stephen Price. My name is Stephen Price. I live in Georgetown.
Not so close, Steve.
And I've heard a lot of talk this evening about the comprehensive plan. It's been probably the most referred to document this evening. And I have a question. I heard also referred to something called the Great Scott Plan. Is that the current comprehensive plan? Is that?
That's the one we've been working on.
Right. Well, if anybody has made this comment this evening, and I missed it, but I wanted to simply read to you from the current comprehensive plan regarding waste disposal. It says, the comprehensive plan, I'm reading from page 162, regarding waste disposal, and the decision made by the people who drafted the comprehensive plan reads this way: minimize the impact of waste produced in Scott County, reduce the amount of waste disposed in the landfill, encourage recycling and composting, and reduce barriers to these activities, require the proper use, location, and disposal of hazardous materials, and finally, preserve existing structures to reduce production of waste. That means demolition of houses. Our comprehensive plan says straight up, reduce shipments of waste, and that's the only way to deal with waste. In my opinion, what I'm here to say. Let me hand you this book back. Our current comprehensive plan, the advice is to reduce waste. And I'll just read to you from a letter I wrote. This is a letter that I wrote to the News Graphic on April 15th of 2017. I'm hearing this bang. Can people hear me?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Drop the mic a little bit.
This is what I wrote to the News Graphic. Though living in a Georgetown neighborhood served by trash trucks of Georgetown Public Works, I have shipped no trash from my home in 25 years. In my effort to, I have been shipping on trash in 25 years. I have learned to rather than to discard own waste, to find subsistence serving uses for various discarded materials. Tin cans as grow pots for horticulture. Plastic bags can be sliced and plaited, braided, or woven for cordage. Sheeting and sheeting. I'm not sure what that means by sheeting. I would say for cordage. I doubt it could be used maybe for sheeting. Cardboard and other paper can be composted for crop fertilizer or burned as fire kindling. Perishables, including septic waste or home excreta, can be composted for crop fertilizer. All Scott Countyans, including myself, who oppose Waste Services' Bluegrass plan to expand Scott County's landfill and approval of their current pending application for renewal of their permit to operate, must find and rely upon alternatives to shipping trash so that landfilling becomes an obsolete practice, a thing of the past. Otherwise, Scott County's landfill must be accepted as a necessary evil. By constructively reusing discarded materials, subsistence-minded people in Georgetown and Scott County can create the urgently needed alternative to landfill shipments. Kentucky law, KRS 224-43-010 and 224-43-310 authorize and encourage reductions in solid waste disposed in municipal facilities by promoting reuse and reduction of solid waste, along with yard waste recycling and resource recovery. While Georgetown's solid waste ordinance does not authorize home recycling, it is very urgent that residents and the town's code enforcement office recognize and concede that home recycling reduces road hazardous trash shipments such as those that killed a northern Scott County woman in 2016 and more recently collided with a loaded school bus. Rather than rely on Georgetown Public Works Department or other commercial trash haulers, each Scott County must reduce and hopefully eliminate landfill deposits by becoming material handlers at home and at work, and personally and proudly managing so-called solid waste for reuse so that it will no longer be considered waste. And in this, I want to ask a man named Steve Peace. Is Steve Peace here this evening? Steve Peace is a former director of Lexington trash solid waste collection. Steve Peace, I don't know if any of you know him, but this is a letter I wrote to Mayor Karen Tingle Saves in 2009. And I told her that Mr. Peace would agree with me, basically what I just said in the previous letter. This is the man who headed Lexington's trash collection program, Steve Peace. Mr. Peace's comments supported and encouraged the recycling efforts, my own recycling efforts as I described them to him. And he was sympathetic and said that what he said was that home trash collection by municipalities should be, I want to get to the point. This is what the man who directed Lexington's trash collection program told me in 2009. He said, home trash collection by municipalities such as Georgetown should be optional rather than compulsory, because weekly compulsory home trash collection is A, if not the major disincentive to home recycling. And right now, what this letter was about was that regarding opposed, this is about an ordinance that the Georgetown Council passed in 2009 to make trash pickup mandatory. If you live in Georgetown, you get a bill every month. I get a bill every month for trash pickup, even though I don't put it out. And obviously, if somebody's paying $15 a month, that's a disincentive for them to think about what they could do with that trash. And they're ordered by the town that they have to pay the $15. Obviously, if the town would make that optional, people would have a reason to think, what can I do with these tin cans? I can raise some crops in them, I can raise plants in them. What can I do with these plastic bags? I can make rope out of them. But no, they have to pay the $15 and they're busy they're busy away from home earning the $15, so they don't have time to think about what they can do with the trash. And finally, one other consideration. It's a letter I wrote to Mayor Prather and Judge Leslie. It says, this is in regard to the trailer park on Lyle Road and the sewage problems that they had out there for years. This letter copy I wrote is in the same regard into the trailer park, but further considers mitigation of current landfill problems, including odor, by dry, home, sewerless management of home excreta, rather than current management by wet, public sewage treatment and landfilling. And the PS of this letter reads, an advantage to be gained. What I have said, what I told, I wrote a letter to the people who own the trailer park. They're in California. I read letters to the health department, the fiscal court, the town council, suggesting that rather than continue wet management of home excreta at the trailer park, that composting toilets or even Boy Scout style trenching of home excreta be encouraged, so that no more wet management occurs at the trailer park. And as you know, Mayor Prather wants to connect Georgetown sewer to the trailer park, which would add to the sewage sludge currently shipped from the treatment plant to the landfill. And so this postscript to this letter reads, and then I'll be finished. An advantage to be gained from dry, home, sewerless management of home excreta at your mobile estates. This is to the owners of the mobile estates, actually, and to their attorney. An advantage to be gained from dry, home, sewerless management of home excreta or anywhere at your mobile estates or anywhere else in Georgetown is that it would reduce shipments of sewage sludge to our local landfill, which landfill is currently, largely because of its malodor, subject of major controversy and debate here. Everything that people throw away can and should be recycled, but mandatory trash collection discourages recycling at home. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
I'd just like to very quickly enter the flash drive for our PowerPoint. The record, one gift to you, gift to Joe. Steve. And I think you've got handouts from that PowerPoint too.
What does that include, Mr. Porter? Does that include this notebook, this bound?
No, that's separate. What we had on.
So you introduced the PowerPoint presentation.
I can't make this thing work again. Mr. Royce, you want to have a rebuttal time there, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commission members, thank you for your patience and attention. You've heard a lot of testimony tonight and a lot of arguments, and the hour is late, so I'll be brief. But I don't want to minimize the importance of the issue or the specific issue that's before you, which is important to keep in mind. I've made my best notes as I could for the last 3 hours and 6 minutes. I wish they were easier to follow and that I could jump around quickly. I may not be as smooth, but I've got to jump from spot to spot, so you'll be patient with me. One of the first things that I heard in Mr. Porter's presentation, after I'd gone through laboriously taking you through the history of how we got where we are and how this expansion came to be, and went through the solid waste management plans that weren't just adopted by the county and its solid waste manager and the fiscal court, but were submitted to the state because they were required to by law to say, here's how we anticipate managing waste. The comment was made, well, that's not a part of the comprehensive plan. You can't amend the comprehensive plan with the solid waste management plan. That was the argument Mr. Porter made to you. I'll read to you from your 1991 comp plan, lest there be any question. Under the heading, Relationship of Solid Waste Management Plan to Comprehensive Plan, it states, accordingly, the Solid Waste Management Plan is considered to be a background study to the comprehensive plan, which hereby incorporates its goals and policies. Now, I guess that's the only way you get away from those solid waste management plans that were enacted year after year, relied upon, is to say, well, they're not part of the comp plan, just ignore them. Mr. Dale, the planning expert, gave his testimony, and never once did he ever mention those. Never once did he mention what the fiscal court had said and adopted about how it wanted to monitor and manage solid waste and the anticipated expansion. Not one single reference in the slides. There was a comment about that these sewer lines were run up because they couldn't manage their leachate. This was in Mr. Porter's presentation. They couldn't manage their leachate, so they were doing such a poor job, these sewer lines had to be run. That was from the old city landfill, not this landfill. Those sewer lines were run to deal with a leachate problem from the old 50-acre city landfill. This is something that you run into in a lot of zoning hearings is where you heard extensive argument from Mr. Porter about, well, it's not just this they want, they're going to come back. They'll ask for more, and they'll want more of this 500 acres they've got. And then they'll be saying that other industrial uses can come out there. Well, that's an argument that's made when you don't want to argue against the zone change that's in front of you. The argument is, well, here's what will happen in the future and you ought to be against that. You have one application in front of you. One application. It is not for a new landfill. It is not for any solid waste disposal. It is for clay excavation, buffering, sedimentation for an existing landfill. So the argument that you all are somehow so weak that, well, they'll just come back in here and make you give them more and more and more, well, that's a little insulting, I think. Let's take the zone change that's on the table and the evidence that's on the table about this zone change and the authorized capacity that has been reinforced every 5 years for the last 20 years of 9.6 million tons of capacity authorized, and that we're talking about an expansion that is more than 1 million tons less than that. Let's talk about that zone change because that's what's to be decided. as a matter of law, not the zone change that they want to tell you may come down the road. The conditions can't be enforced, so just ignore them. Well, then I guess the zoning ordinance can't be enforced either. Might as well just ignore that. We put these restrictions into a development plan that gets approved by this body, by the fiscal court, and becomes a part of what we legally operate under. We're bound by that. Now to say, well, you can't enforce it, you might as well just ignore it. Well, if that's the case, just don't have zoning ordinances. If you can't enforce them. You know, the idea, the suggestion that we were over in Fayette County pitching the idea of using the railway, the short line railway that exists to get waste from the regional transfer center in northern Fayette County to this landfill. That was cast as somehow an evil suggestion that was ever raised. That was something that people were against, was ever using rail. And yet 70% of the comments that I've heard tonight are genuine, serious concerns about road traffic. Trucks being on the roads. So we don't want any rail service, and how dare you even raise that in Fayette County? I'll tell you what, at our planning workshop, you all were there. I heard planning commissioner raise the question. Wouldn't rail traffic make sense to get this over there? We put that restriction against rail traffic because it was something the public had said, we don't want any rail traffic there. You're damned if you do, if you're damned if you don't on that. The comment that Mr. Dale made in analyzing the comprehensive plan, he said, well, the Sadieville interchange is projected for future development to be an enhanced area and so on. Okay, that's great, and hopefully it will develop that way. But the argument is you shouldn't have your trucks getting off at that exit because in the comprehensive plan it says in the future that there may be a development there. There is a truck stop there that services I-75. The suggestion that the trucks to the landfill change that and make it negative and therefore shouldn't use that exit, that just doesn't pass the smell test. The argument that...
Just folks, put that out there, maybe not the best folks, for this audience. This man sat over there and listened to every one of y'all's comments and never said a word. It's his turn to speak. Let's let him speak.
Mr. Dale presented his analysis of the comprehensive plan and what you should do, and he said, you know, I did see the stuff in the 91 comprehensive plan where they were talking about a regional landfill, and maybe this was an idea, or maybe they ought to have it in another county. And he says, but that was just saying it was something to be considered. There was no follow-through on that. Ladies and gentlemen, I showed you the follow-through. I didn't stand up here and tell you what it was. I didn't refer to meetings I was in that you all don't know about. I showed you the public records where the follow-through happened, where the permitting for multiple counties to ship waste to this landfill was, where the expansion, the authorization of expanded capacity was, and was repeated year after year. Now again, we could go back and turn back time to 1991 or 1998 and have an argument like what's being had tonight about whether landfills are good or bad or where they ought to be. This landfill and these owners invested in Reliance based on what had been set out for year after year after year, what was in the county plans. And to come in tonight and act like this is a zone change for whether there ought to be a landfill or not, that is not the issue. And I told you that right up front. The issue is, will you allow adjacent property to be used not for an industrial bugaboo use that they want to make you think that there's going to be some factory with smokestacks. It is specifically limited in our application to nothing but excavation of the raw material to use on the landfill. It means that's all that can be done on that zone property. And it also says, and nothing else on the remainder. We can't use any of that for the landfill. So again, all we can do is put it in our request, say this is our zoning application. We want to put waste on the landfill site in a capacity that's authorized and has been for 20 years. That's the question. Is that consistent with the county's 20 years of planning? There was a comment, I don't know that I want to respond to it. The video shown from recently about Decatur, Georgia, I think Mr. Porter slipped in toward the end. He said, well, this company didn't own it when that happened, but it was, and, well, that was kind of overlooked. I'm not sure why it was used if that was the case. The GES issue, no doubt, that was an issue. This company paid a penalty for it. GES, as you know, won blue ribbon awards because they were going to dispose of all the states and the county offices, various laptops and computers, etc. And then they went out and lied and committed fraud, and there's a guy under indictment that's going to sit in federal prison for it because they signed false affidavits to landfills, and they didn't just put it in our landfill, crushed up glass, and tell us it was something that it wasn't. They also buried it in Georgetown, out behind their place. So again, the idea that somehow we were accepting hazardous waste and had to know and so on and so forth, I can guarantee you they wish that had never happened. I can guarantee you they've had to take all kinds of remedial measures through the Department of Waste Management to remedy that. And that goes back to the issue at the beginning. You know, I understand what Mr. Williamson says about this Department of Waste Management must not be very effective. He also said that this county has never been able to manage waste and shouldn't try to manage waste. That is from the solid waste coordinator.
Retired.
And tells you Division of Waste Management can't do anything. Ladies and gentlemen, this is one of the most heavily regulated industries there is. EPA, Division of Waste Management, Army Corps of Engineers. I mean, one right after the other, all these standards are set. There has been one notice of violation issued for odor at this landfill. One. And I go back to this point, it's where I'm going to wrap up. The suggestion, I heard it said, well, if we're only putting 11% of the waste in there, why don't we just put our own waste in there and nobody else's, and we'll have 150 years, I think was the quote. Folks, that sounds great. It sounds awesome. Every county would love to do it. Go back and look at what the county leaders, this planning commission, the fiscal court, and the city council were saying in 1991. That doesn't work because you can't operate a landfill with that volume. And the cities and the counties can't do it because the environmental regulations are through the roof and they're expensive and this is costly stuff. So the only way to do it is start to centralize it and the private companies run it. And based on that, we bought a landfill, got it authorized for the counties that we would take waste from, with the full eyes open of the county leaders. This wasn't something slipped through in the middle of the night. It's in the fiscal court minutes. The city was well aware. The county host agreements say this. And now here we are with the entire draft permit ready to go, everything, to do this expansion that is compliant with what's been in the comprehensive plan through the solid waste management plan for 20 years. And what we need is zoning to disturb 69 acres of a 500-acre tract to bring clay and build sediment ponds on, subject to all federal and state regulations. Ladies and gentlemen, it complies with the comprehensive plan. The existing zoning is inappropriate. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your time and patience. You are fine people, and there is no ill will harbored about anything you may have said or arguments you made to me. I know how you feel, and I know why you feel strongly. Members of the Planning Commission, you're acting in a quasi-judicial manner. That means sitting as a judge, following the law, and the law is clear on this application. They're entitled to have the expansion that they've relied upon for 20 years. Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Give me 1 second.
Just a minute.
Nobody's talking about the they're gonna cover it up, little people. They're gonna cover it up. And nobody has said one word about it.
You ready? Mr. Porter,
And
did you have
obviously
some
nobody cares.
final comments, real quick?
Mr. Smith, I'm gonna
Real quick comment is.
That usually goes last, but nevertheless.
Oh, we're gonna bring you back up. You ain't got no problem worry about that. He'll come back up.
In the interest of time and Mr. Royce's objection to my getting up, I will say good night.
Thank you. At this time, I think we need to just close the public comment. I think we've had enough comment from everybody in the public. I think we'll close the public comment, and all questions now will be directed from the commission to the applicant or to staff. So at this time, would anybody on the commission have a question for the applicant? I do, Mr. Royce. Can you come up, please?
Yes, sir.
Can you address the smells coming from the area? I've been by there myself early in the hours of the mornings, go to the airport or something, and you can go up 75 and it's just pretty bad.
Yep. Landfills have odor. You're not gonna hear me trying to convince you otherwise. It's manageable through a couple of ways. One thing is that when waste comes to the facility, what controls the odor is the ability to cover it quickly. And that's key, is getting it covered quickly. It can depend on the time of year, the moisture, the humidity, etc. The methane collection is a huge, huge benefit to odor control, because that's what it is. It's carbons breaking, or it's materials breaking down and generating methane. I understand what Mr. Minke said. He's a good friend, a longtime friend, and he's very diplomatic. This methane system for Toyota will ultimately, it is only a small portion of the property right now. It will be expanded. There are vacuums that pull that from the full cells of the landfill. And once that's running, that's when you get up into the second, third, fourth, and the 10 megawatts that Toyota predicted that they could generate. So the methane system is a big thing that will help. As part of this expansion, the ability to install that will help. The other thing that I can say is the odors that exist, to the extent we hear reports about them through the state, they issue us notices, and we have to deal with them. They issue corrective orders. There is a certain amount, and again, odors are subjective a little bit. Now, I'm not suggesting that there's not odor, but what may be an odor to one person is different to another. So they have standardized tests where they have to smell and then dilute it and determine, can I smell it when it's diluted 7-to-1? There's been one notice of violation. Now, that doesn't mean there haven't been other complaints. There may be. But the ability to deal with that odor control, number one, is handled by methane. Number two, doesn't change with expanding this to allow what we're talking about, which is to put additional cover on it from the adjacent site. That's all. We're not talking about any new waste area off the property. It's the best I can do.
Somewhere along the line, you said that of the 179 acres that you're asking for the zone change, that only 69 acres of it would be used.
Disturbed. Right.
So why would you need the 179 acres?
Because for the state, you're required to show them that you have the sufficient borrow area and the sufficient buffer area within the permit to accomplish what you need. So that's why it's shown, and that's why it was addressed with a restriction that says you can't use the rest of it for anything else.
Okay. The issue on the hazardous waste, how's that stuff monitored when it's coming in, your trucks and stuff?
Hazardous waste?
Can you?
A number of ways. And one of the things that happened was, as a result of that, our guys went through additional training on inspections. There are spot inspections done of that stuff. Number one, the person who brings the waste, the company who brings the waste, has to certify under an affidavit that there's nothing on there. That's the industry standard. In addition to that, there are spot checks of those. We've gone through retraining of that, and have enhanced the spot check since then, all as a result of the corrective action required by the Division of Waste Management. And that's how you deal with it. That was a tough issue. You were talking about not cathode ray tubes that were brought out there and dumped. This was all crushed. And
I guess my only other question is, and you've heard it, it's been a very popular idea, I guess, is about the recycling. You know, I know Scott County doesn't have a recycling program. Well, there is one little town in Scott County that does have recycling, and that's Stamping Ground. So
You're right.
I'm proud of that.
You're right.
We do recycle, and we try. But I found out the other day, the trash from Stamping Ground don't even go to this landfill. It goes to Mount Sterling. I was amazed. I was like, what the crap? I didn't know this. But anyway, we have started recycling. So I know it can be done. I know it can be across the county. Out of these 15 counties that you say are bringing trash to here now, do you know how many that are actually recycling?
yeah, the main producers on that list: Fayette County, curbside recycling; Jessamine County, curbside recycling; Harrison, Cynthiana, curbside recycling. I love it if Georgetown would do it. Love it, but that's not our time or place to make that argument. But yeah, those contributors are limiting their waste through curbside recycling, and that is, there are a million ways to talk about reducing waste, but until you make it where it's curbside, you're not going to reduce household waste substantially.
I agree. And when you get into curbside, it costs more money. We in Stamp Ground, we eat a little bit of more money.
You all have the Rumpke's curbside recycling program. That's right.
Yeah, our trash bill went up a couple bucks a month. I'm worried. That's fine for me. I was amazed. I was amazed how much recyclables we got.
Ours gets fuller now than the regular trash does.
Exactly, mine too. So they probably get tired of coming to my house.
My wife trained me.
Yeah. Does anybody else got any questions?
Mr. Royce.
Yes, sir.
Question is in regards to the safety on 25.
Yes.
A lot of the residents are concerned about the traffic generated by the existing facility out there. Is there any way the county and your client can potentially rectify this safety issue?
Here's what I would say. A couple of things on that. And this is going to sound offensive to start, but then I want to answer your question. Remember, Georgetown's trash collection has been going out there for 25 years on those very same roads. All the trash collected over here, city trucks, been going out that road. Now, we took the trucks that we can control because they come through that transfer station, which is a substantial part, about half of what we accept comes through that transfer station. We're able to control those trucks, and we've routed them up to the additional exit. Now, there were improvements made this last year. Can there be more improvements? Potentially. But what's interesting to me is the county, Planning Commission, county, if there's improvements that need to be made to the road, it's not like we're saying, hey, there's 200 acres out there and we're thinking about putting a landfill out there, and somebody says, well, you don't have the roads for it. There is a landfill there. It's had traffic on it for decades, and a lot now, a lot. The county needs to look at making adjustments that will help improve those roads, and they can. The county can do that. We can't do that unilaterally. But we're more than happy. We've tried to control our truck traffic. The other issue you have sometimes is jurisdictional, whether you've got a federal road, a federally controlled road, and then it limits what the county can do. And you heard the train concept, but that's not something that people embrace.
One other question on that recycling. Does WSB try to help communities with recycling at all?
Yeah.
They have recycling programs at the...
Yeah, we do 6 curbside recycling programs, is that right? Yeah. Yeah, it might seem counterintuitive. We're all about that. It's fine to have recycling. Does it mean less in the landfill? Yeah, but that expands our capacity over an additional period of time. And that kind of goes back to the point I've tried to make here is the concept that this expansion is going to create all this new traffic, garbage, excitement, activity. It's not. The expansion is going to extend the duration that this can operate out there. And if the argument, and you've heard it, and they've been pretty candid about it, is you need to shut this down. Maybe not now, we're okay if you just do it in 3 or 4 years. That's a big decision, and it undoes 30 years worth of planning. But what we're proposing is just to extend the duration, not increase the activity, the trips, or anything else. This is just an expansion in duration. It's a horizontal expansion. It allows additional areas that we can go into. Part of the reason is a vertical expansion, you've heard of 200 feet. Well, can you imagine if we were taking the fill and everything else on site and limiting everything to on site, what a vertical expansion would look like? This is a horizontal expansion that allows us to use additional areas in the landfill that we haven't used and then go on top of what we've done already. It's a duration issue, not an activity level issue.
You said we got 4 years?
About 3 or 4 years.
Okay, if you take Lexington, most of it off of there, how many years would you have? Say, cut it in half.
I don't know that I can do the math off the top of my head, but what do they make it, 6, 8?
Or if you just took Georgetown, you said it would work like that.
Yeah.
It was just Georgetown.
I mean, it did not
If we
work.
just had our own trash, we would.
Yeah, the city said we can't do this, it doesn't work. We got to close this thing, we got to sell this to somebody else, we can't do it. I mean, that's the idea here. The choice isn't, do we have a landfill that serves the region, or do we have a landfill that just serves us? They can talk about that alternative all they want. That's not on the table because it doesn't work. It doesn't work financially. It doesn't work from a regulatory standpoint. And that's why what they're arguing to you is we want to get rid of this landfill altogether. We want to undo what was planned over the last 20 years.
Mind taking our own trash.
What happened to the county?
Anybody else have any questions on the commission?
Mine's more of a statement, seeing that there's no more questions.
Are you finished with me, Mr. Solsky?
Yes, sir. Thank you. I've spent several hours researching this, trying to be as educated as I possibly can. Looked at the purchase contract signed April 1999 between the City of Georgetown and Water Services of Bluegrass Incorporated. Whereas the citizens and businesses of the city in 1999 generated approximately 7,200 tons of solid waste that year. Truly a Scott County, Georgetown landfill. Back then and in 2017, a staggering 415,358 tons were dumped with an average of the 114 trucks daily that we keep talking about. That's 58 times the amount of trash from just 18 years earlier. As I see, the community was very well represented. Unfortunately, a lot of people, 6 hours later here, or 5.5, here we are. I've seen more people tonight than I've ever seen at any other Scott County meeting ever. This tells me one thing. It's a term we use a lot as a commission, and we hear it quite often. When citizens of this magnitude come out against an application, this acronym is used quite often, NIMBY, N-I-M-B-Y, not in my backyard. I'm not in favor of this application, and I'm not in favor of a regional landfill. And with the attendance tonight that I've seen in opposition of this application, it's obvious the community doesn't want it. And as we, as a commission, represent the people. The zoning request to accommodate a landfill expansion is not in clear compliance with our comprehensive plan. Therefore, I make a motion to decline this application based on, I'm taking notes and I wrote this all just now. So first, the existing zone classification given to the property is appropriate and that the proposed zone classification is inappropriate. In addition, that there have been no major changes of an economic, physical, or social nature within the area involved, which we're discussing in the adopted comprehensive plan, in which we have not substantially altered the basic character of such area. So I made a motion to decline.
We have a motion by Mr. Solsky, which is, what do you call it?
You want to read it?
No, I was just wanting to add to it, Mark, on your motion, is that I don't feel like the WSP has been a good fit for this community because of the fact that all the complaints we are getting, they're not helping anywhere that I know of, encouraging people to recycle. They know that this could help. We're bringing all this trash in from out of counties, which I understand has been planned for years, but something just doesn't fit right there. It's hard to put my finger on it. I just don't think it's the right thing to do at this point in time. So I just want to add that on to his motion. We did get a second from Mr. Cannon.
Would the movement consider adopting or making part of his motion the findings tendered by Mr. Porter?
Well, there's a lot of facts and a lot of complaints, and as I went through this, I mean, there's 20 pages of violations that I think we need to put it in there, definitely.
Are you talking about the findings tendered by Mr. Porter?
Correct.
Okay.
To also add the findings of Mr. Porter.
Does the second accept that?
Yes. So we have a motion by Mr. Solsky and a second by Mr. Cannon. All zone changes are a roll call.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
I said we have a motion by Mr. Solsky and a second by Mr. Cannon, and all zone changes are a roll call vote. So we'll call roll call now. A yes vote is for denial of the application. Mr. Wiseman?
Yes.
Mr. Solsky?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes, and I would like to make a comment that I think the 179 acres that's being asked for, to go to I-2 is way too much. It's if it was a lesser amount, I'd be that. It's way too much.
Ms. Mizell?
Yes.
Chair also votes yes. Motion, or the application is denied. Meeting is adjourned.
Thanks. Picture of the chair you can, right?